Quilix Vaughn's crystalline exoskeleton shimmered under the early morning glow of Oravel's overhead lights. He stood in the broadcast booth, adjusting the delicate resonance plates along his speaking appendages, preparing for his daily show. It was a routine as familiar to him as breathing. Yet this morning, his mind wandered to the curious rumors that had circulated in the last few rotations. Some claimed to have seen brilliant lights dancing at the edge of Voxelia's atmosphere. Others insisted it was nothing more than atmospheric anomalies. Either way, the city hummed with subtle anticipation. He paused to sip a warm infusion, letting the soothing liquid settle his nerves before going live. Oravel, capital city of Voxelia, was a place renowned for geometric beauty. Towering spires of translucent crystal soared above neat grid-like streets. Many Voxelians took pride in the harmonies their exoskeletons produced when they gathered in large groups. These gatherings, whether for markets or festivals, filled the air with soft chiming that had become a hallmark of their civilization. When the signal light blinked, Quilix reached out with his main arm and flicked the switch that activated his broadcast. A gentle hum coursed through the booth's sound panels. "Good morning, fine citizens of Voxelia," he began, his voice modulated to the perfect pitch. "This is Quilix Vaughn with Whispers from the Void, where we delve into cosmic curiosities and share the subtle wonders of our world." He continued with the usual routine, announcing the day's weather forecast. Minimal crystallization risk, mild humidity levels that would make traveling outside pleasant. Then came the familiar sponsor breaks, a polished, musical advertisement for Exo Polish, guaranteed to keep a Voxelian's crystal plating gleaming for dozens of cycles. As the jingle ended, Quilix briefly referenced the rumors swirling about mysterious lights in the sky. He suggested, in a teasing tone, that perhaps these rumors were merely illusions or wishful thinking from stargazers. All the while, Narex Fun, his producer, monitored the console from behind a transparent barrier. She signaled Quilix to wrap up. Time was nearly up for the day's morning session, and the next broadcast slot, dedicated to official government updates, was about to begin. Quilix thanked the audience and closed out, stepping away from the microphone with a relieved sigh. Yet even as he removed the acoustic filters from his speaking appendages, he couldn't shake a sense of unease. Outside, Oravel hummed with its usual morning bustle, but it felt different. Citizens hurried to their tasks, exoskeletons glinting, antennae bristling with excitement over intangible rumors. Quilix wondered if perhaps the unusual sightings might be more than illusions. He had, after all, built a career on exploring the mysterious corners of the cosmos. It was not so easy to dismiss these stories outright, especially when more and more listeners wrote in with similar sightings. He left the booth and moved through the wide corridor that led to the main lobby of Voxel Broadcasting Central. Towering columns of polished crystal extended upward, lined with swirling patterns that caught and refracted the ambient lights. Frill Dosser, the station's lead technician, stood by one of the consoles, tapping away with his secondary limbs. Frill noticed Quilix's approach and twitched his antenna in greeting. "Morning broadcast sounded smooth," he said, voice carrying a gentle vibrato. "No interference on the main frequencies." Quilix nodded. "I appreciate the update. Strange how so many are talking about lights in the upper atmosphere. No sign of that on our instruments, I suppose." Frill shrugged. "I ran a diagnostic last night. There was a spike on frequency band C, but it barely registered above background noise. Could be a glitch. I'll look into it further." His words did little to dispel the nagging feeling Quilix had. "I'll be in the lounge, revising tonight's show notes," Quilix said. "If anything else comes up, let me know." Narexfin joined him a moment later, carrying a folder of fresh sponsor scripts. "You're worried," she observed, blinking her wide eyes in the Voxelian equivalent of curiosity. "I could hear it in your broadcast voice. Are you thinking about those rumors?" Quilix allowed a soft chime of acknowledgement, a subtle sound one could only produce by lightly tapping two plates of the exoskeleton. "Yes, something feels different this time. The calls we're receiving are consistent. Strange lights at night, shifting colors, no recognized pattern." I've never heard so many accounts aligning so closely. Nerix glanced around to be sure no one was eavesdropping. Gilix Moore has been sending the station messages again, she said softly. She's insisting that her old xenobiology theories might be relevant. Gilix Moore was a name that triggered mixed reactions across Voxelia. A scientist and professor once considered visionary, she was later dismissed by most academic circles as too radical. She had appeared on Quilix's show 3 cycles before, speaking about the possibility of non-crystalline sentient life in the galaxy. Her theories had generated a wave of both fascination and ridicule. Quilix arched a plate in thought. We can't ignore the possibility, he said. Though if it were anything that monumental, the Observatory or Defense Authority would have informed us by now. He made a non-committal gesture with his secondary limb. Still, maybe I'll invite her to comment for tonight's broadcast, just for the sake of discussion. Nerix seemed uneasy at the idea, but shrugged. Better to stay ahead of the rumor mill. We'll keep the broadcast balanced. Throughout the day, Quilix prepped for his next show. He revised sponsor reads and selected Cosmic Trivia for his usual segment. Yet in the back of his mind, he crafted possible questions for Gilix, should she agree to call in. He also prepared disclaimers in case her theories ran too wild. He wanted a thorough approach. Evening arrived quickly. The sprawling cityscapes of Auravel began to sparkle under artificial lights, the hum of Voxelian nightlife reverberating like a gentle chorus. Once more, Quilix stepped into his booth, the red broadcast indicator flashing overhead. Good evening, citizens, he began, letting his well-practiced tone glide through the introduction. He offered a few local news updates. Nothing major, just a mention of the next cultural festival, a new horticultural exhibit featuring bioluminescent crystals, and then, carefully, he broached the rumor. I've heard from many of you about the dancing lights that some claim to have spotted in our skies. While many remain skeptical, we have with us, via live call, a familiar voice, Professor Gilix Moore. The line crackled slightly. Hello, Quilix, came the unmistakable voice, resonant but tinged with the sharper vibrato of academic zeal. Thank you for having me on air again. My pleasure. Now, Professor, you've stated that these lights might be connected to the same theories you discussed with us in the past. Care to elaborate for our listeners? Gilix Moore wasted no time. Quilix, you'll recall my research on the plausibility of non-crystalline extraterrestrial life. We've often assumed that all intelligent life would share our exoskeletal physiology, yet the universe is vast. The energy signatures reported by citizens might be indicative of controlled movement, not random atmospheric phenomena. Some listeners likely rolled their eyes, but Quilix remained professional. And you think these lights, if controlled, might be... He didn't finish, letting the possibility hang in the air. Yes, said Gilix, her voice growing more animated. We might be witnessing the earliest evidence of another civilization. They could be probing our atmosphere, investigating our planet. Fascinating, Quilix responded diplomatically. Of course, most official channels remain silent or unconvinced. Any message for skeptics? Only that we shouldn't dismiss the possibility, Gilix replied. In my studies, I've hypothesized that if such a civilization came upon us, they might initially observe from a distance, testing the environment. This aligns with what I'm hearing from your audience. Quilix ended the call on a neutral note, reminding listeners that no official confirmation had been made. Then, abruptly, the emergency signal on his console began flashing. From the other side of the glass, Nerix beckoned frantically. Something was definitely happening. Citizens of Voxelia, Quilix said, voice tense. I'm receiving an urgent bulletin from the city's emergency system. It appears we have multiple reports of unknown objects descending on Auravel, specifically near the Grand Plaza, the Academy of Sciences, and the Central Reflective Pools. He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. We're suspending our scheduled program to bring you live coverage of these events. His mind reeled as he switched to the station's direct line with field reporters. In the background, a chaotic mix of signals poured in. Frill Dosser's voice crackled through. Quilix, we're picking up a strong interference pattern across multiple bands. It's definitely not random. Something big is coming down near the city center. Even in the brief silence that followed, Quillix heard the echo of sirens. He pictured the shining spires of Oravel as he had seen them earlier in the day, now overshadowed by something unknown that no one had truly prepared for. He forced calm into his voice. "Citizens, remain in your homes if you can. We're going to contact Commander Velk Thrang of the Defense Authority for an official statement." The call patched through almost too quickly, as though the commander had been waiting. "This is Commander Thrang," a stern, resonant voice said. "We advise all citizens to avoid the landing sites. Stay indoors until further notice. We are investigating the nature of these unidentified craft." "Commander," Quillix ventured, "do you believe this is a hostile act?" "It's too soon to tell," Thrang answered, "but we are treating it as a potential threat. Our forces are mobilizing around the affected areas." Quillix thanked him, then turned back to the broadcast. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have limited information, but we'll continue to provide updates as they come in. Please remain calm." Outside the broadcasting center's wide windows, Quillix could see the faint glow of city lights. The swirl of distant motion lit the horizon, and though Oravel was known for its nighttime radiance, these new flares looked different, sharper, more defined than any crystal reflection he had witnessed. A sharp sense of foreboding coursed through him. The station's entrance burst open. A breathless courier, wearing the bright messenger harness, sprinted inside. He clutched a folded slip of paper and quickly passed it to Nerex, who relayed it to Quillix. It read, "Confirmed sightings at 4 major sites. Objects appear metallic, egg-shaped, approximately 20 to 30 lengths in diameter. Landing confirmed in wide-open spaces with minimal immediate population density." Quillix relayed the message on air, noting the significance of the landing choices. It was almost as if these unknown visitors wanted to avoid causing chaos. Were they trying to minimize casualties, if any? Or was it a mere coincidence? A second courier rushed in. This one reported from the Academy of Sciences. The object had landed near an open courtyard. Soldiers formed a perimeter, no shots fired. Observers described the craft as eerily silent until it touched down. Then a low hum resonated, causing nearby communications to flicker. Quillix glanced at Nerex and Frill, who exchanged uneasy gestures. The hours of the night wore on like a strange dream, both too fast and too slow. Alarms wailed outside, and calls flooded the station. Professor Gillix Moore arrived at the station in person, half panting from exertion, carrying several small data crystals. Security officers at first refused her entry, but Quillix insisted on letting her in. She tumbled into the broadcast booth, ignoring protocol. "Quillix, they're responding to signals," she announced, her voice vibrating with excitement and fear. "I've been analyzing the interference patterns. They're consistent with attempts to modulate frequencies, like they're scanning and adjusting to our communication channels." Commander Thrang, hearing this through the broadcast, demanded an explanation. Gillix pressed a data crystal into Frill Dasser's console, showing waveforms. "Look at this. The patterns fluctuate in prime number sequences. That's a universal approach to establishing communication. The only thing universal here is our priority, Voxelian safety," Thrang retorted. "We have not confirmed that these craft are friendly. My soldiers are under orders to maintain a secure perimeter." Gillix's eyes flickered in frustration, but she held her tongue. Quillix moderated the heated discussion, aware that the entire city, and perhaps beyond, was listening. Then came the moment that shifted everything. The first official contact from one of the landing sites. A park attendant, Trace Amist, had apparently been close enough to witness an opening in one of the vessels. The attendant's frantic voice played over the broadcast. "They're stepping out, 5 of them, bipedal, tall, but no exoskeleton. They appear soft, with a reflective layer of material covering their bodies. They're holding devices. I can't tell if these are weapons." "There!" The line crackled. Quillix leaned closer to the microphone. "Trace, can you describe their movements?" "They're cautious. One is holding up its upper limbs, open appendage gesture, like they're showing they're not armed." Trace's voice quivered. Or maybe I'm just guessing. Our lights are flickering again. They're doing something with that device. Commander Thrang cut in. All security units stand by. Wait for my order. We can't risk an attack, but do not engage unless they pose direct harm. Gilix took advantage of the moment to speak. Commander, you must realize they've chosen wide-open spaces, evidently to minimize alarm. They're responding to mathematical signals. That's not the action of a hostile force. The commander's tone remained guarded. We'll know soon enough. As hours passed, it became clear that similar scenes played out across Oravel. Groups of these visitors, uniformly clothed in shimmering suits, emerging slowly from their vessels. They moved as though unaccustomed to Voxelia's gravitational pull, each step deliberate. Occasionally, they would pause, hold up a device that sent out scanning beams or pulses of light. Even with the tension heavy in the air, not one shot had been fired, and not one Voxelian had been harmed. Then came the most shocking revelation of all. The visitors began sending out a more direct signal, one that the station's equipment, tweaked by Gilix and Frill, could finally decode in part. The translator spat out fragments of meaning. Earth traveled far. Urgent purpose, star, danger. Stunned silence followed in the broadcast booth. Frill's limbs trembled as he tried to refine the translator, hoping to catch more clarity. Gilix's academic markings glowed in excitement. If I'm interpreting this right, she said breathlessly, they call themselves humans. They come from a planet they call Earth. And something about our star being in danger. All across Voxelia, families huddled around their radio receivers, antennae pressed together in anxiety. Quillix, taking a deep breath, addressed the city once more. Citizens, it appears these beings, these humans, have traveled from somewhere beyond our world. We are deciphering their message. They speak of urgent purpose, something about a warning related to our star. Commander Thrang stiffened, his caution unwavering. Or to be a ruse. They might be trying to lull us into submission with tales of cosmic disasters. Until further notice, do not approach the craft. Another voice cut in. Advisor Rennick Pole, a high official in the planetary governance. Commander, I understand your concerns, but we cannot ignore the possibility that their warning is genuine. If our star is threatened, we must investigate. Allow me to form a scientific committee to examine their data. The debate raged on. Meanwhile, the visitors continued their quiet stance at landing sites, making no overt moves toward the city center. Certain broadcasts from eyewitnesses described the humans projecting star maps in the air or playing soft, modulated sounds that shifted in pitch, perhaps their attempt to speak. At last, an extraordinary order came through. A small delegation, including Gilix Moore, Quillix Vaughn, and a select group of soldiers and medical personnel, would be allowed to approach the largest craft in the Grand Plaza. They would do so under strict conditions. No direct contact unless given permission. No sudden moves. Quillix's role would be to keep the entire city informed in real time. Quillix found his heart hammering against his chest plates as the transport carried him through Oravel's silent streets. The usual lively crowds had retreated, and only clusters of curious, anxious citizens remained at intersections, kept at bay by security checkpoints. In the distance, the Grand Plaza's crystal spires glowed in subdued emergency lighting. When they arrived, Quillix noticed the object up close. It was egg-shaped, as described, but its metallic exterior seemed to ripple under the low light, reflecting Voxelia's architecture in distorted patterns. A ramp or aperture on one side revealed a group of the humans. He marveled at how different they looked, taller than the average Voxelian, lacking any sign of an external crystalline layer. Their limbs were covered in a metallic suit, yet parts of their faces were visible through transparent panels. Gilix carefully set up the portable translator device, hooking it into Quillix's broadcast pack so that the entire city could hear every exchange. Commander Thrang's soldiers took defensive positions, sonic disruptors at the ready. One human, evidently the leader, stepped forward, raising a hand. Her face displayed what seemed like a cautious smile, lips curving in a way no Voxelian's mouth ever could. She spoke in quiet, melodic syllables. The translator hummed, then output a monotone approximation in Voxelian speech. Greetings. We come from Earth. We mean no harm. We must speak of danger to your star. Gilix gaped, her antenna trembling in amazement. They truly do come in peace, she whispered to Quillix. Quillix steadied his nerves, activating his microphone. Esteemed visitors, he said, choosing his words carefully. I am Quillix Vaughn, representing the people of Voxelia through our broadcast. We hear you have a warning about our star. The translator relayed his words, and the human leader nodded. I am Captain Elena Mercer. We have traveled far to deliver an urgent message. Sensors indicate your sun is unstable. Within your next 9 cycles, it will undergo catastrophic flare events that could destroy life on this planet. A shocked murmur passed through both Quillix's entourage and the soldiers. Even through the translator's mechanical tone, a sense of gravity emanated from Mercer's speech. Gilix stepped forward, her academic gear clattering. Catastrophic flares? But we've detected no such anomalies, she said quietly. Captain Mercer's second-in-command showed a small portable projection device. Instantly, a 3-dimensional image appeared in midair, illustrating Voxelia's star. Odd pulses and swirling arcs of energy glowed ominously. We've studied patterns like these in other systems, Mercer explained. They are subtle. At first, beyond the detection capabilities your instruments likely have. But in a few short cycles, they will intensify. If not stabilized, these flares could render your world uninhabitable. Commander Thrang spoke through the communicator. Why warn us? What do you stand to gain? Mercer's expression grew solemn. Our own history. Humanity once faced a similar crisis in our home system. Massive solar instability that forced us to evacuate entire continents. Many perished. Through that tragedy, we vowed to never let another civilization face such a threat unprepared if we could help. Quillix relayed the conversation. Across Voxelia, citizens listened with bated breath, some in disbelief, others feeling a sense of dread. Could it be true that their star was dying faster than they knew? We can help, Mercer continued, if you allow us. We have developed a stellar stabilization technology that can channel and dissipate the dangerous eruptions. But it requires resources and cooperation. Advisor Rennick Pohl, who had been silent until then, interjected. What assurance do we have that this is not some scheme to take over our planet, offering help in exchange for power? Mercer spread her empty hands, scanning the group with an almost pleading look. We ask for no power. We will leave once we have assisted with your star, or if you prefer evacuation, we can arrange that. The choice is yours. But we cannot walk away from a catastrophe we know how to prevent. It was Gilix Moore who broke the silence. Captain Mercer, she said, her voice trembling with both excitement and fear. I am Gilix Moore, xenobiologist and researcher. For most of my life, I've theorized that other forms of life must exist, that we might one day meet them. I never imagined the meeting would be under such dire circumstances. Mercer offered a gentle smile, even as her translator turned it into a series of measured words. It is our privilege to meet you, Professor Moore. We studied your planet's broadcast signals. It was how we discovered you in the first place. Your transmissions were faint, but enough to guide us here. A wave of realization swept through Quillix. Humanity had come because of broadcasts like his. He could hardly find his voice. You heard us? He asked, antenna rigid with astonishment. We did, Mercer confirmed. You spoke often of cosmic curiosities, wonders beyond your world. Those signals traveled far enough for us to detect. That is why we came. Commander Thrang coughed, bringing the discussion back to immediate concerns. Captain Mercer, how do we proceed? Our society won't simply hand over resources without proof. We must verify the threat to our star and confirm your solutions. We understand, Mercer said. We have extensive data available. We're willing to share the schematics for our stellar stabilization array with your scientists. Alternatively, if your populace prefers evacuation, we have a list of possible colony worlds. The mention of evacuation sent a ripple of shock through the Voxelian ranks. Abandon their home? The idea was almost unthinkable. Quillix pressed the microphone closer. Citizens of Voxelia, he began, letting his voice carry the weight of this revelation. We are learning that our star may be on a path toward destruction in a matter of years. These visitors offer us two choices: build a system to stabilize our sun, or prepare for a mass exodus. Either path will demand extraordinary effort and cooperation. Within hours, the city's leadership convened an emergency council. High up in the tallest spire of the governance building, delegates argued, debated, and analyzed the data humans provided. Advisor Pohl remained cautious but open-minded. Professor Gillick's more worked feverishly to interpret the advanced technology in the humans' star mapping projections. Outside, the landing sites were slowly surrounded by curious onlookers, kept in check by defensive patrols. Humans, numbering only a few dozen, stayed near their vessels, occasionally stepping forward to offer more data or to assist Voxelian scientists with calibrating new instruments. Bit by bit, trust began to build, though suspicion lingered in every corner. Quillix found himself in the role of official mediator and historian. He broadcast updates, shared testimonies from both sides, and tried to quell the population's growing fears. In one particularly poignant broadcast, he interviewed a young Voxelian who had approached a human in an unguarded moment. The young one described how the human removed part of her protective helmet, revealing a face with skin that flexed and wrinkled, unlike any crystal plate. She had smiled, placing a hand gently on her chest, repeating a word, friend, until the translator caught the meaning. Reports of such interactions spread. Even Commander Thrang, though still on alert, conceded that no aggressive act had been committed by the humans thus far. The real enemy, it seemed, lay in the hidden fury of Voxelia's sun. After days of tense deliberation, a decision was made public. Voxelia would accept the humans' offer to construct a stellar stabilization array to preserve the planet they loved. The global broadcast that night featured Quillix and Advisor Pohl announcing the plan, while Captain Mercer and her team answered preliminary questions. There was still much to figure out. How to align the Voxelian crystalline energy systems with the humans' advanced technology, how to mine and refine enough resources to create an orbital network large enough to harness and redirect solar flares. Yet for the first time since the landings, a wave of relief spread across the populace. Instead of waiting for an invisible doom, they would act. Machinery arrived from the humans' vessel, specialized drones, and scaffolding. Voxelian miners tapped into the largest crystal reserves, aided by human expertise in energy conduction. Scientists worked side by side, bridging enormous cultural and technological gaps with surprising speed, fueled by the urgency of their shared crisis. Quillix continued broadcasting daily progress reports. He documented the historical partnership forming between Voxelia and Earth. It was not without hurdles. Some Voxelian factions argued the technology threatened their sovereignty, others feared humans would never leave. But each time these tensions rose, new evidence of collaborative success would emerge. Data confirming the star's instability or the partial completion of the first orbital array ring. Commander Thrang and Captain Mercer, once adversaries across a tense channel, grew to respect each other's commitment. A minimal defense force remained vigilant, but it served more as a symbolic reminder that both parties were aware of the stakes. The real work took place on newly constructed orbital stations, where human-engineered platforms locked into place, anchored by Voxelian power crystals. Over months, an unexpected camaraderie blossomed. Humans learned that Voxelian exoskeleton chimes could convey a range of emotions through subtle vibrations. Voxelians discovered that human facial expressions and vocal tones were every bit as nuanced. The repeated refrain from each side was the same. We are more alike than we could have imagined. Finally, after nearly a cycle of intense labor, the first test of the stellar stabilization array approached. The star's increasing flares had already begun causing minor disruptions in Voxelia's climate, and the scientists were certain the next wave could be more severe. Teams gathered in an orbital command center that soared above the planet's pristine cloud formations. Among them were Quillix Vaughn, broadcasting the event to every receiver on Voxelia, and Professor Gilix Moore, overseeing the final calibrations alongside human astrophysicists. A hush fell over the command deck when the star's readings showed a spike in solar activity. With measured composure, Captain Mercer signaled for the array to activate. Giant crystalline conductors powered up, resonating with an electrical hum that rippled through the vacuum of space. Invisible fields formed around the star, channeling the violent ejections into controlled arcs that dissipated harmlessly. On the planet below, entire cities watched the sky in awe. Flashes of light were visible at the star's edges, yet the predicted harmful radiation never arrived. The system held, the energy surge passing like a storm diverted by a mighty barrier. Wild cheers erupted both on the orbital station and across Voxelia. Quillix, voice trembling, delivered the news in real time. Citizens, it works. We have stabilized our star. I repeat, we have stabilized our star. That day became a planetary holiday. Over time, additional modules were added to the array, ensuring long-term stability. The humans, true to their word, set up a liaison program with Voxelia, establishing peaceful interstellar ties before most of them departed to continue their guardianship mission elsewhere. Some stayed behind to help refine the technology, while a handful of Voxelians joined the human ship to learn about the wider galaxy. Many tearful goodbyes were exchanged, though the bond formed was deeper than any ephemeral farewell. Cycles later, Quillix Vaughn entered the Memorial Broadcast Studio, the very same building where long ago he had first reported sightings of glowing objects in the night sky. Now much older, the cracks in his once lustrous exoskeleton reflected a lifetime of service to Voxelia and beyond. He settled before a modern transmitter that combined Voxelian resonance with the human's advanced communication protocols. Beyond the broad window, the city skyline had changed. Familiar crystal spires intermingled with sleek arcs reminiscent of human architectural style. In orbit, one could still discern the faint glimmer of the vast stabilization array, a monument to interspecies cooperation. As he spoke into the microphone, his voice carried a gentler vibration. Good evening, people of Voxelia, and our friends across the stars who may yet be listening. I am Quillix Vaughn, once again at the helm of Whispers from the Void. On this anniversary of First Contact, we commemorate the day everything changed. A day that began in fear, but led us to hope, understanding, and a future shared among many worlds. He glanced over at Professor Gilix Moore, now Ambassador Moore, who nodded in agreement. She was as tireless as ever, devoting her life to science, diplomacy, and preparing Voxelians for possible new discoveries beyond their own star system. In the corridor beyond, Commander Thrang, now retired, walked with a reflective dignity, greeting old comrades and new generations of officers alike. Our star still burns brightly, Quillix continued, voice laden with emotion, thanks to the humans who came not to conquer, but to offer a gift of survival. We learned from them that the universe can be vast and hostile, yet also filled with allies we have not met. May we carry that lesson forward as we begin our own voyages among the stars. May we embrace the unknown with open arms and a readiness to help those in need, just as we were once saved. The applause and chimes echoed across the broadcast studio. Outside, a new generation of curious young Voxelians looked skyward, scanning for signals from distant horizons, wondering who else might be out there. Humanity, in many ways, had moved on to other corners of the galaxy, but they had never truly left Voxelia behind. Through shared technology, cooperative research, and an unspoken bond of gratitude, Earth and Voxelia remained forever intertwined. Quillix ended the broadcast with a gentle smile. His final words resonated in that hush only a live, full-planet transmission could command. This is Quillix Vaughn, reminding us all that our story, and the day the humans came, will echo through time as proof that sometimes the greatest mysteries beyond the void bring with them not fear, but hope for a greater tomorrow. Then, with a final flick of a switch, the broadcast ended, leaving a planet of listeners wrapped in quiet reflection. In that pregnant silence, there was a feeling that the dawn of a new era had only just begun. No one, not even Quillix with all his years of broadcasting mysteries, knew how far Voxelia would go. But they did know they would never again face the cosmic unknown alone. The memory of that first contact had taught them the power of unity, empathy, and knowledge shared freely across the vastness of space. And so the people of Voxelia stepped forward into their future, exoskeletons shining with renewed purpose, hearts filled with wonder and resolve, ready for whatever might come next.